For more analysis, let's turn to Jeff Moon. He is the president of China Moon Strategies and a former assistant U.S. Trade representative for China. So, Jeff, a lot to get to here. First, I want to get your reaction to what we are expecting today from President Trump with these steel and aluminum tariffs. This is something he did in his first administration. So what's the decision behind what's happening this time around?
This is just the latest development in a multi-decade story of overcapacity in the global steel sector. So there are certain countries that have heavily subsidized steel for decades and are selling it for less than cost on the global market. They are displacing the production in markets like Canada and Brazil and Mexico, and those countries are then sending their steel to the United States. So Trump's tariffs in 2018 and the tariffs now are intended to displace that and to stop that overcapacity. China has 50% of the global capacity for steel and sends a lot of it overseas. It does not send it to the United States because it is subject to those 25% tariffs that were imposed in 2018, but it does send it to a lot of the countries that will now feel this 25% tariff that Trump is going to impose today.
So, Jeff, how does this impact and how does it help the United States, long-term and short-term?
Well, as I said, we have discussed global steel overcapacity for decades, bilaterally, multilaterally, and gotten nowhere. And so I think Trump is finally saying, well, we're going to take action to prevent this story. And the way that it affects the U.S. market is that it puts companies out of business. It prevents companies that are operating on market-based principles from being able to compete. So that's the basis of this, and jobs are on the line. There's also a political dimension to this. There has been increasing political pressure for the government to do something in many of the key swing states as well, which Trump felt quite a bit when he was on the campaign trail. So this is a very complicated, long-term problem.
I want to get your take on Chinese tariffs on U.S. Products coming into effect today. We've seen that this is, a reaction to what was imposed on that country. What is your take on what's happening there?
Well, from a quantitative perspective, China is imposing tariffs on $14 billion worth of goods. The U.S. tariffs are being imposed against $400 billion worth of goods. There's quite a difference there. But qualitatively, what China has done is quite interesting because it has indicated that it is prepared not to just to respond in terms of tariffs, but with respect to all sectors across the economy. There was an antitrust investigation announced against Google, which looks to me like possible retaliation for what's happened to TikTok. Critical minerals continue to be weaponized as well. And then there are the apparel and biotech companies from the U.S. That may be feeling retaliation for what has happened to companies in those sectors in China. So those are just a few examples. That is in addition to the existing market problems that U.S. companies have in China. And I think what China is saying is that this time quantitatively, they don't want to escalate, but qualitatively, they're prepared to go across the board to respond.
And Jeff, we keep hearing that President Trump is likely to make more tariff announcements later this week. What do you expect we'll hear when it comes to either products or countries? And really, how much longer will we keep getting news of new tariffs? I mean, are we going to see this in the next several weeks, months, or what is your take?
Well, Trump is certainly unpredictable intentionally. He presents maximalist positions with very few details, which makes people nervous and hopes that they will start thinking about ways that they can accommodate his interests. But reciprocal tariffs, which is what we're talking about, is similar to the steel tariffs. These are both long-running issues that Trump in 2019, at his State of the Union address, called for reciprocal tariffs. So he's been thinking about this for a long time. And what he's going to be targeting is places that have higher tariffs on U.S. goods than we have tariffs on here in the United States. One example is European autos, where Trump has said many times he's unhappy about the fact that Europe tariffs the U.S. at 10%, the U.S. tariffs at 2.5%. Interestingly enough, the Europeans have heard him on that, and there have been press reports over the weekend that they are preparing perhaps to adjust their auto tariffs. But other countries, emerging countries like India, the prime minister of which will be visiting this week, have much higher tariffs in general than the U.S. has on Indian goods. So this discussion, I think, is going to be heard in a wide variety of contexts.
All right, Jeff Moon, China Moon Strategies. Always great to get your take on things. Thank you so much for joining us.